On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the UFC 294 middleweight fight between Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa. And if you never watched the show before, I basically go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles, and then I give you my pick at the end. Some of this stuff may have relevance, it may not, but I like to look at a lot of different things when it comes to breaking down fights. At the time we're recording this right now, it kind of looks like this will be the co-main event. I would assume it is, with Chimaev's name power, but either way, it'll still be 3 rounds, not a 5-round fight, but we'll see how this card shapes up in a few months, because we got a lot of time here. We're recording this in August, which is great. Let's do a quick tail of the tape between the two fighters here. Paulo Costa, you can see their 14-2 record, 12-0 for Khamzat Chimaev, 32 years old to 29, 6'1" to 6'2", 72-inch reach to 75. So even though Chimaev is moving up to the weight class, it's Paulo Costa who's going to be a little undersized here in this matchup. Let's talk about Paulo Costa first, the former middleweight title challenger. That's right, he did fight for a belt at one point. So Paulo Costa, you can see their 14-2 record. He's got 11 knockouts, 1 submission, and 2 decisions. He's the number 6 ranked middleweight. You know what's interesting? So I did the breakdown for Costa and Ikram, and of course that fight got moved around. And Paulo Costa was ranked number 7. Now he's ranked number 6. I don't know how he moves up after not fighting, but just a little note there. So I mentioned it there. He's 32 years old. He's 6'1" with a 72-inch reach. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He trains in Brazil and also at Fight Ready as well. Of course, there's that famous picture of him and Tracy Cortez together. He's got Performance of the Night 2 times against Gareth McClellan and Uriah Hall. He's got Fight of the Night 2 times against Yoel Romero and Luke Rockhold. Paulo Costa did not have an amateur debut, went straight to the pros in February of 2012, made his UFC debut in March of 2017. He is 6-2 in the UFC. He's got 4 finishes. Some notable wins at the time: Johnny Hendricks, former champion, that was kind of notable back then. Beat Yoel Romero, still probably, well, it is the biggest win he's had so far, is beating Yoel Romero. You also have the Luke Rockhold fight, former champion as well, although, again, that was Luke's last fight in the UFC, and now he's doing bare knuckle and other stuff. And then some notable losses, obviously the Adesanya fight and the really weird Marvin Vettori fight, where just during fight week, he's like, yeah, I'm not fighting at middleweight. We're going to fight at 205. And he ended up losing that fight. Did not look good in that matchup either. The Adesanya fight, by the way, the first time that Costa has been finished in a fight, which I think is kind of a key thing here. People also forget that Costa was on Tough Brazil 3 back in 2014. Defeated Jose Ribeiro via guillotine choke on the show, and then lost a split decision to Marcio Alexandre Jr. Hope I'm saying that right. Probably not. The only close fight that Costa's really had in his career was the fight against Yoel Romero. If you look at the media scorecards for that, that was back at UFC 241 in August of 2019. 11 media members scored the fight for Costa, 9 scoring it for Romero. I remember watching that thinking it could have gone either way, but still, that's the biggest win he's had so far. Yoel Romero, quite the talented fighter overall. Now, Costa's had a ton of layoffs, and I think layoffs will be key in this matchup because, we'll talk about the Chimaev side in a sec. But check out all these layoffs he's had. He has not been that active since joining the UFC in 2017. So going from Johnny Hendricks to Uriah Hall, there's a 245-day layoff. Going from Uriah Hall to Yoel Romero, there's a 375-day layoff. Going from Romero to Adesanya, there was a 430-day layoff. Going from Adesanya to Vettori, there was a 392-day layoff. Going from Vettori to Rockhold was a 301-day layoff. And then going from Rockhold to this fight is 427-day layoff, the second longest layoff he's had in his UFC career. The only other one that comes close is the fight with Israel Adesanya. Going from Romero to Adesanya, that was a 430-day layoff. So not that active. And, it's there's been a variety of reasons for that. There's been some injuries. There's been, obviously the contract issues as well. That's part of the reason why you have not seen him, fight as much. So there's been sort of this back and forth about Paulo Costa and, his contract stuff with the UFC. So that's one thing. We could go through everything here. There's a lot of things that we could get into detail as to why he hasn't fought, but I'll just kind of keep it general for this one because I want to keep this breakdown a little bit shorter. But one thing I will mention is look at some of the names he was supposed to fight. Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, supposed to fight Rockhold the first time. Ikram, remember that was sort of a fight where if you watch that breakdown, I felt like the UFC was kind of trying to punish Costa, but now they're giving him another absolute killer here in Khamzat Chimaev. Again, I don't know what the UFC sort of thinks of Costa, but I know he's been a bit of a tough guy to deal with in terms of contracts. Let's look at Paulo Costa's stats here. If you look at it there, significant strikes landed per minute is 6.50. That's pretty high. His striking accuracy is 60%, which is great. His strike defense is at 47%, so he does get hit a bit. Takedown defense is at 79%, which could be key in this fight. Chimaev always looking to get it to the ground, and his takedown accuracy is 75%. But, kind of like I mentioned there with Costa's wins and losses, he doesn't have that many notable wins. The only notable win, really, if kind of looking back now, is probably Romero. Hendricks, again, he was kind of on the tail end of his career, and same thing with Rockhold. So his only notable win really is Romero. A lot of the guys that Costa's defeated are not in the UFC anymore. McClellan, Bambos, Hall. Romero's not in the UFC anymore either. Like, his biggest win is a guy that left the UFC shortly after that. So just one thing to keep in mind when you're talking about Paulo Costa. Anyways, enough about him. Let's talk about his opponent here. Khamzat Chimaev, the undefeated welterweight / middleweight. Although I don't know if he goes to welterweight anymore. I've been pretty adamant that I don't think that happens. Anyways, he is 12-0, like you can see there. He's got 6 knockouts. Sorry, he does not have 6 knockouts. He has, 6 knockouts, 5 submissions, 1 decision. He is 29 years old. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. 29 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. So he'll be 3 years younger than Paulo Costa. He'll also have a 1-inch height and 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's a BJJ purple belt. He is number 4 in the welterweight rankings, which, again, if you're fighting in a different weight class, I think you should be taken out of the rankings. It's a big pet peeve of mine, especially when it looks like, there's no indication that he's coming back down. Remember, there's all the rumors about him and Usman, which I think was just all nonsense, that it was never going to happen. But that's aside the point. Chimaev is a 3-time Sweden wrestling national champion, and he trains at the All-Star Training Center in Sweden. He's got Fight of the Night 1 time against Gilbert Burns. He's got Performance of the Night 4 times against John Phillips, Reese McKee, Gerald Meerschaert, and Li Jingliang. He's got the record for fastest consecutive wins in modern UFC history in 10 days, and he's got the quickest 3-fight win streak in modern UFC history at 66 days. This will be his 5th fight at middleweight in the UFC, or actually it'll be his 5th fight at middleweight, period. He's had 2 catchweight fights, and he's had 5 welterweight fights in his career. Chimaev made his amateur debut way back in September of 2017. Made his MMA debut in May of 2018, made his UFC debut in July of 2020. Of course, that fight against John Phillips. Some notable wins that he has. We'll count this one as a notable win here. He did defeat Ikram, who was 8-0 at the time. Ikram on this card fighting Nasruddin Imavov. Ikram was the guy who was supposed to fight Paulo Costa, interestingly enough. So that was a good win because he was undefeated at the time. And then other than that, Li Jingliang was ranked at the time. That was a good win. Gilbert Burns was a very good win. Burns, a contender in the weight class, former title challenger. Kevin Holland, I know he's popular. Not really. I guess Holland's ranked, right? But not actually. I want to double check that. I'm pretty sure Holland is ranked right now. Let me just double check that. Holland, I don't know what to make of Holland at this point. Good fighter, but I don't know if so he's ranked number 12. Okay, so we'll count that as a notable win as well. And also he's extremely popular. But also, that's pretty much it. And then he hasn't had any losses, obviously, Chimaev being 6-0 with 5 stoppages. This will be, he's only had he hasn't had any injuries at all. He's had a couple layoffs, not as many as Costa here, but if you go from Gerald Meerschaert to Li Jingliang, he's had a 406-day layoff, and believe it or not, and I had to double check this, I swear, I'm not like making this up if you do the math here, going from Kevin Holland to Paulo Costa is also going to be 406 days, so he is tying the longest layoff he's had in his UFC career going into this fight. That's how long it's been since he's fought. The only close fight that Chimaev's had was against Gilbert Burns at UFC 273. If you go back and look at the media scorecards for that one, 17 media members scored the fight for Chimaev, 1 scored it for Burns. So majority feeling like Chimaev did get enough done in that fight. And check out these stats for Khamzat Chimaev. These are really impressive. Significant strikes landed per minute, 7.30. That's incredible. That might be the highest I've ever seen on UFC stats before. His striking accuracy is 59%. His striking defense is 47%. His takedown average is 3.98, so he's probably going to get a takedown in this fight. And his strike defense is 47%. His takedown defense is 100%. So no one's ever taken him down in the UFC, which is interesting. But to be fair, how many wrestlers has he fought? And his submission average here is 3.5. So yeah, very impressive stats here for Khamzat Chimaev. Let's take a look at the odds. So you can see here right now, a number of books having Chimaev almost a 4-1 favorite. In fact, FanDuel does have him at minus 400 right now. I get it. I do think the odds are a tiny bit off in this fight. And I'll explain why in a second. And then if you want to look on Tapology, we always look at the fan picks here. You've got 81% of people picking Chimaev to win over Paulo Costa, just 19%. You guys saw my breakdown with Islam and Charles. Those odds were closer than this fight, which is kind of crazy just with how dominant Islam was in the first fight. But yeah, you can see there 81% of people favoring Chimaev. So if you're looking at the stats here and then you're looking at the odds, it kind of does make sense that he's such a big favorite. But I think the odds are a bit high for a couple of reasons. Okay, so first and foremost, the best opponent that Khamzat Chimaev has fought in his career is Gilbert Burns. Now, I'm not saying Gilbert Burns is on the same level as Paulo Costa. I think Burns is probably a better fighter, but That was a fight that went the distance. Remember going into the fight with Burns, everyone just assumed that Chimaev was going to go out there and get another highlight reel finish and finish the fight very quickly. But that's not what happened. Burns actually gave him a very tough fight here. So that tells me, and I know it's a different weight class, I know it's welterweight, that tells me that maybe when he gets that step up, it's not going to be a quick, easy finish. It may, but again, I'm very big on level of opposition, and I think the fact that he didn't finish Burns in that fight, and not to say that Burns is easy to finish, I think the only guy to finish him at welterweight anyways is Kamaru Usman. I still think that that told us a lot about where Chimaev's skill set's at. Not to mention the layoff coming into this fight as well. The other thing is, Paulo Costa, he's tough to finish. He's only had, one stoppage loss in the UFC, and that was against Israel Adesanya. But outside of that, he's fought guys that have not been able to finish him. But again, like we mentioned, level of opposition isn't great. Anyways, I'll quit leaving you guys in suspense here. I'm going to be taking Khamzat Chimaev in this fight. I'm going to be taking him by third round submission. And here's my reasoning for that. 50% of Chimaev's wins are by submission, more so than knockout. It's 43%, I think, by knockout for him. Like I mentioned there, Costa's only been finished once in 16 fights. That was against Adesanya in 2020. This is the first tough middleweight opponent that Chimaev has fought. And I am a big believer in weight classes. Now, I know we talked about it there. Chimaev will be bigger in terms of the height and reach. Costa does cut a ton of weight, though. Like, I'd be curious to see strength-wise who's the stronger fighter, because Costa is a big dude and needs a lot of time to get down to 185, whereas I don't think there's a chance in hell Paulo Costa could make 170, whereas we've seen Chimaev make 170. So I tend to think that Costa's a little bit stronger here. And the reason that I think that plays a role in this fight is that I don't think Chimaev's just going to run right through Costa and finish him in the first round. I've seen a lot of people say that. Maybe it happens. Again, there's always that unknown of how they'll look, but I always refer back to the Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz fight, where people thought the same thing, that Adesanya was just going to be as successful at 185 as he was at 205. He lost that fight. Alex Pereira. How many people said Alex Pereira is going to knock out Jan Blachowicz, who, by the way, has been knocked out before? Pereira wasn't able to do it. Now, does that mean that, I think that tells us that weight classes do matter in terms of who you're fighting. Like, they're bigger, they're stronger. So I don't think, I think people are just assuming that because he's moving up and he's fought at 85 before, that it's going to work out well. The guys that Chimaev has fought at 85, the wins that he has, John Phillips not in the UFC, Reese McKee, actually that wasn't middleweight, that was welterweight, and Gerald Meerschaert. And granted, the Meerschaert win was good, there was 17 seconds, but we've seen Meerschaert finish before. So kind of what I'm getting at is that, I don't think it's a guarantee he's just going to steamroll and run right through Paulo Costa. I'm assuming a lot of people think that way. Now, on the flip side, Paulo Costa has not looked great. I hated that fight with Luke Rockhold. I thought if there's ever a fight Paulo Costa is going to get a knockout in, it's against Luke Rockhold, who'd been knocked out a number of times. Vitor Belfort, Yoel Romero, Jan Blachowicz. He'd been knocked out all these times, and Costa couldn't knock him out. In that fight, I was very surprised. I know people enjoyed the fight. I just didn't think it was a great technical fight at all. And then the Vettori fight, he got dominated. I wouldn't say dominated, but he clearly lost the fight. And Vettori, that loss hasn't exactly looked so good either, because Vettori, I think we know now, is not a contender in the weight class. And then Adesanya, going into that fight, I would love to go and dig up some old predictions. I picked Adesanya in that fight, but there's a lot of people saying Paulo Costa is going to knock out Israel Adesanya, and it won't even be close. And Adesanya schooled him in that fight. Ever since that fight, Costa has not really looked the same. And I don't know what the reason is. I'm not going to speculate here, but he just has not looked good since then. So I think on the flip side, he's fighting a guy in Costa who I think was a tad overrated, going into some of his fights. And by the way, I did pick Ikram over Costa as well. So, again, I'm not a huge Costa guy. My thing is, I don't think it's a guarantee that Chimaev is just going to, like I said, steamroll Paulo Costa so early. So that's why I'm going with the later submission. This is how I think it's going to happen. I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to, pace himself, knowing that Costa, like I said, has only been finished the one time. I know his cardio was a bit suspect in the Burns fight, but I think a lot of that was the weight cut. He's not going to have to worry about that here. He's not cutting as much weight to get to 85. I think he catches Costa. I think he knocks him down, and I think he goes for the submission. Like I said, he's more of a submission guy than a knockout artist, and I think he submits him in the third round when Costa's getting tired. Because, again, Costa, he gets tired because he cuts so much weight, whereas Chimaev, like I said, not cutting as much weight in this fight. I could see Chimaev getting a third round submission here. So that's what I'm going with. Khamzat Chimaev, third round submission to get it done over Paulo Costa. I could possibly see this going the distance as well. Again, he was not able to take out Gilbert Burns. Same thing could happen here with Costa, just the one stoppage loss in the UFC. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who are you picking as far as a prediction in this fight? Let me know. Again, I always say this. Tell me your prediction. Don't just say I'm picking a fighter. I'd like to hear how you think the fight unfolds. Remember, only 3-round fight, so But I do think Chimaev will get it done within the 3 rounds. If there's any other fights you want me to preview that are coming up, just let me know in the comments. Would be happy to hear your feedback. And I definitely will be getting to some of the title fights and some of the other big fights that are coming up as well. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports, and Threads as well, same handle. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.